Coming up, I delve deep into an Aussie specialty.
So why does Australia have such a lethal array of venomous snakes?
I'm on a wild, wet and windy visit to Fraser Island.
1,000 kilometres north of here, there's a tropical cyclone.
And I come face to face with a dingo.
What a sight. Fraser Island dingo.
This great land of ours is renowned as being home to some of the world's most dangerous animals. Stories about snakes devouring wallabies, crocs that swim up our streets, spiders that lie in wait under toilet seats, and sharks that hunt down surfers is how the rest of the world think we live day to day.
In reality, there's 23 million of us, and most live in urban areas. And nearly everyone will have little to no contact with these deadly critters in their lifetime.
There's a whole lot of land in the outback for our wildlife to roam. And that is exactly what they want to do.
Especially the ones with the greatest potential to cause us harm.
We have 20 out of 25 of the world's most venomous snakes. But here's something that will surprise many. Without fail, every single one of them would rather flee in the opposite direction than confront us.
You have to remember, until 50,000 years ago, a mere blip in evolutionary history, the wildlife here had never met humans.
What their instincts tell them is that something heavy enough to vibrate the ground they lay on probably wasn't potential prey. In fact, it would more likely be something to fear, so the safest bet was to slither away or hide. And that's exactly what they'd rather do with an approaching human. They certainly don't bite out of malice. So when you hear of someone being bitten, in many cases it's probably due to them trying to corner or handle the snake or even kill it. And often they're intoxicated.
So why does Australia have such a lethal array of venomous snakes? One theory puts it simply. Australia is a harsh continent and snakes develop venom as a tool to help with killing prey and digestion.
Our venomous snakes hunt in different ways, and it's down to the confidence they have in their own venom that decides how they go about it. Some, like the death adder, have taken the easy option and become ambush predators.
Death adders live in country just like this, and they bury themselves under the leaf litter, just their head, eyes and tail with a lure. They wiggle that tail. When unsuspecting prey comes along, bang, they'll grab it. Now, adders also have a large bulbous head with long fangs, and when they bite onto their prey, they hold on.
It's all about energy conservation. The habitat is harsh and food is scarce, so the more energy conserved, the less times they have to eat.
But for the majority of our venomous snakes, they're active hunters. Taipans, brown snakes will aggressively seek out prey, and when they find them down a burrow, in a nest, they'll attack, no question.
It could get a series of bites in. Most likely, it'll be one. These are the snakes with the most confidence in their venom. The prey will be out of there like a rat up a drain pipe, but the snake's supreme senses will already be on its trail.
Before long, the unfortunate victim will succumb to the snake's venom. Now, for most Australian snakes, they have strong neurotoxins that essentially paralyse the prey.
Whatever it is and wherever it falls is where the snake finds its next meal.
When food's scarce and life's tough, energy saved versus effort exerted is critical, as snakes may not get a chance to sink their fangs into another prey item for some time. Here's another thing that'll surprise you. Snakes don't always deliver venom with every bite, and when they don't, it's called a dry bite.
Wasting it on humans is not the best way to utilise valuable venom. A meal may be along straight after. On average, Australia has 2 deaths a year from snakebite. That's from a figure of around 3,000 bites. More people die from honeybee stings in Australia than from these feared yet widely misunderstood creatures.
Having said that, the number of deaths from snakebite is far less than it used to be, and that's thanks to anti-venom.
Every 2 weeks at the Australian Reptile Park, we milk over 200 snakes for their venom. The venom is then sent off to be made into anti-venom. It's an important part of our work here because without it, there would be a lot more deaths from snakebite across the country.
We've been supplying venom for over half a century, and it all started with the park founder, Eric Worrell.
Until 1955, the only available snake anti-venom came from tiger snakes. It didn't matter if you were bitten by a brown snake or a death adder, that's what you got. But a spat of deaths in the early 1950s from taipan bites saw Eric step up and become the main supplier of taipan venom until an anti-venom was released. Subsequently, anti-venoms were released for brown snakes and death adder until a polyvalent anti-venom was released that combined snake venoms so that any unidentified bite could be treated across Australia.
The venom we extract here is sent off to the BioCSL in Melbourne to be made into anti-venom. Now that's the last for this batch, and it's on its way.
Details of severe tropical cyclone last year. Intensity, category 3. Sustained winds of 150 kilometers per hour with wind gusts to 205 kilometers per hour.
Think Fraser Island and long stretches of golden beach, dingoes and sunny skies spring to mind. Unfortunately, the latter isn't on the cards for this visit.
Now, there's my first glimpse of Fraser Island and the coast. And you know, things don't always go to plan. I've had this trip organised for a long time. But right now, 1,000 kilometres north of here, there's a tropical cyclone, category 3. It's pushing a big low pressure system down this way. Now, the ocean's already up to a few metres. It's massive, awesome to see. The winds are started, they're going to get much stronger, and the rain's going to pour down. But, you know, that's what makes each trip unique and exciting, and these are the parts that you remember.
The wildlife on Fraser is immense. 47 mammals, 79 reptiles, 354 bird species have been recorded. The trouble is, they all know bad weather's on its way. This is 75 Mile Beach. It stretches right up the eastern coast and is so named because, well, it's about 75 miles long.
It's forever changing. The wind and sea have that effect on it. In fact, the whole island's in a constant state of flux.
For 2 million years, ocean currents and waves have swept sand north along the mainland's coastline. It collected here, covering bedrock that stretched along the coast until sand rose above the water.
And that's what we have today, a continually evolving mass, 123 kilometres long and at its widest point, 22 across.
Now, you may be asking yourself, how can an island made of sand support all this vegetation? Surely it hasn't got the nutrients needed for life. Well, it has, and the whole island's living proof. It's completely covered in lush greenery.
And the greatest thing is, I'm over 200 metres above sea level on a sand island in the middle of a rainforest. Nowhere else on Earth will you find this.
Rainforests are specialised ecosystems. They need very specific conditions to thrive. Plenty of rainfall and nutrient-rich soils.
The island didn't come with soil for plants to grow in, but if you take some sand, mix through some minerals, some fungi, add a drop of water, plants can grow. And that's exactly what happened. Now, as the forest got established, the cycle begins to turn over. The trees are up, the leaves fall, they decompose, and now they turn over their own nutrient-rich soil.
No matter where they are in the world, you'll find one thing common to the trees in the rainforest.
Life on the ground in the understory is tough, especially for plants, because they need sunlight and very little penetrates through the canopy, except when a big old tree like that comes crashing down and it leaves a gaping hole and sunlight floods through. Then it's a race to see which sapling can get up into that patch of sunlight the fastest. That's the plant that'll fill that hole. Ah, that's beautiful. Fraser Island's creeks and streams have some of the cleanest and most crystal clear waters on Earth. And that's because the water passes through the sand and it acts as one giant filter.
The streams aren't the only fresh water on the island. This rough-looking shoreline is actually one of the island's greatest draw cards. Unfortunately, in this weather, you don't get to see what the attraction is. This is the view any other time of year. It's Lake Mackenzie. Now, remember, this is fresh water. It's inland and on a sand island. So how on earth is it here? It's known as a perched dune lake. Its formation is down to the dead plant life covering a bowl in the sand. Over time, all that organic build-up has hardened to form its own bowl. That's allowed rainwater to collect and leaves us with the lake we see today. It's a stunning body of water that would challenge any around the world for its purity. The best place to catch a glimpse of dingoes on Fraser is on the beach. The trouble is, in this weather, I've got no chance of seeing one, so I'll have to see some turtles. They're not so bothered about a bit of wet. Earlier at the Reptile Park, I sent off our latest batch of snake venom to the BioCSL labs in Melbourne. It's there that they turn it into anti-venom. But snake anti-venom isn't all they make. Other countries might have more venomous animals, but ours are certainly the most potent. BioCSL got involved with anti-venom production in the late 1920s. It was clear then that something had to be done to protect the growing population from the threats that surrounded it. Snakes and spiders get the majority of the bad press, but there's a long list of other deadly species we should also consider. There's jellyfish, octopus, fish, and ants out there that can have just as much of a devastating effect. And you won't believe what animals are helping scientists make the anti-venom that saves human lives.
Yes, boy. Hey? At this farm, the species that are involved in anti-venom production are rabbits for funnel-web spider, sheep for box jellyfish, and horses which produce anti-venoms for all the land snakes, plus sea snake, redback spider and stonefish.
If we went back to the earliest days of anti-venom development, it involved horses, using horses as the animal to immunise with venom to produce antibody. And that remains the dominant technique throughout the world today.
Technology really hasn't changed over the years. The main change has been the introduction of the apheresis machines which are human plasma collection technology.
Well, who'd have thought that? So the horses are injected with minute amounts of venom over time, so small that it doesn't have an adverse effect. But what it does do is produce antibodies that counteract the foreign substance in its system. 12 months down the line, blood is taken and the plasma extracted. That contains the antibodies, which, when injected into the snakebite victim, neutralises the venom.
What's happening today is blood's being drawn from the horse and it passes through this apheresis kit machine, which separates red blood cells from plasma. Now, the plasma is collected in the bags below, which is used for anti-venom production, and the red blood cells are returned back to the horse during the process. This process takes about 3 hours and 10 to 12 litres is collected from each horse.
Here's our equine anti-venom production plant. It's about 5 days from go to woe in this process. We produce enough anti-venom so that every hospital in Australia, if they need it, has anti-venom available. We make 11 different types of anti-venom here. Anti-venom for black snakes, taipans, death adders, tigers and brown snakes. We also make a polyvalent anti-venom, which is those 5 land snakes combined. a sea snake antivenom, a funnel web spider antivenom, a stonefish, and a box jellyfish antivenom. The one that gets used the most is redback spider. Redback spiders are found throughout Australia because they have actually adapted to live around humans. So virtually every house will have redback spiders.
And all the venom from land snakes comes from the Australian Reptile Park. That's something we're really proud of.
Bites and stinks account, as you guys will see, for a lot of presentations to the emergency department.
The development of antivenoms in Australia started at the Commonwealth Serum Laboratories, then a government laboratory based in Melbourne. So CSL Limited has a long history of involvement in this area. They developed the venom detection test, they developed the first aid technique that is now standard in Australia and is being looked at in other parts of the world. They've been involved in producing guidelines for doctors on managing envenoming around Australia over the last probably 30 plus years.
So in Australia, the number of snake bites that present to hospitals throughout Australia is about 600 a year. The redback spider envenomation, where people come in with quite extensive amount of pain, what we call local sweating, piloerection, where the hairs stand on end, that's the most common presentation to emergency departments that require antivenom.
The typical person thinks that a snake fang is really pretty large. You know, snakes on a plane. This is an African snake, a gaboon viper, very large fangs. That's kind of the preconception that some people have. But many times, because we've got very toxic snakes in Australia that have, generally speaking, pretty short fangs, then a bite may not particularly be noticed by the patient. That's a brown snake fang, the leading cause of death from snake bite. So this says that you can have a person who collapses out in the bush or even at home after a snake bite, unaware that the cause of their illness is a snake bite.
The mortality in Australia as a result of snakebite is about 2 to 3 on average a year, and that's been over the past 10 years. In the past, we had a bit of a peak, and we do see that on occasions when you look at the history in terms of mortality as a result of snakebite.
So there you have it. Without doubt, venom is an Aussie specialty.
The best way not to get bitten is just to give snakes a bit of space. If you see one, leave it alone. Most people are bitten trying to catch the snake or kill the snake. If you happen to get bitten, you really do need to stay calm. That's the golden rule. The faster the heart beats, the more the venom pumps around the body. Further to that, immobilise the limb. Get yourself to hospital. Don't worry about wiping it. They need that venom there to test what snake it was if you're not sure. Even if you don't know if it was a python or a venomous snake, get to the hospital and you'll be right.
This is Lake Alum, another one of Fraser's stunning freshwater lakes, and it's home to some inquisitive little critters. These are Crefts river turtles. They're a subspecies of Australian short-necked turtles. To get a closer look, I'm going to have to get wet. Well, wetter than I already am. And there we go. They're feeding on fresh shoots and any fruits that drop off the trees. But they're also hunting live prey. Aquatic insects and larvae, crustaceans and any small fish they can catch. They actually start off life as carnivores, but become omnivorous over time, meaning they'll eat both vegetation and meat. They're only found in Queensland east of the Great Dividing Range. But how they got here, across the salt water of the sea into a perched lake on an island, is anyone's guess. That's another world under there. And that's one species that doesn't mind this weather. But this species does. I'm out of here. I'll be disappointed if I don't see a dingo while I'm on the island. All I need is a break in the weather, and I'm sure they'll be out. 25 to 30 packs inhabit the island, each containing between 3 and 12 individuals. They're the apex predator here. They literally keep the ecosystem in balance. These dingoes are from the north of Fraser. The full, healthy body is a giveaway. They're hunters, not used to human handout. Their diet is varied, made up of birds, reptiles, fish, invertebrates and mammals. They're living the high life, and that's probably why Fraser Island dingoes are the biggest in the country. They average 18 kilograms here compared to 16 in Kakadu and 13 in Central Australia. But these amazing creatures have been subject to hatred and persecution ever since Europeans first brought agriculture to our shores. It's when they come into contact with human activity that the trouble begins. Whether intentional or not, feeding dingoes upsets the natural ecology. If people are feeding them, that leads to a loss of hunting skills and they become dependent on food scraps. Not a good situation. If the food source they're relying on stops, that's when dingoes can become aggressive and incidents occur. Things are looking up. With a break in the rain, there's every chance a dingo will venture out. I'm heading down the beach to see what I can find. And look at that. He's a bit wiry. I'm back down the south end of the island where human interaction is more common. If I'm right, his thin body's a sign he's got a bit used to handouts and probably hasn't learnt the hunting habits of dingoes further up the island.
What a sight. Fraser Island dingo. Doesn't get any better than that.